My name is Evelyn Werk. I was born September 17th, 1955. I'm 68 years old. My Indian name is Strong Talking Woman. I am a Gros-Ventre, Assiniboine, and Métis. I was born at Fort Belknap Hospital. I am the third oldest out of 11 children. My mom's name is Teresa Werk. My dad's name is Harold Werk Sr. My mom's a full-blooded Gros-Ventre Assiniboine, and my dad is Métis. I have 6 sisters. 1 is deceased, and I have 4 brothers with 1 deceased. Okay, my grandfather's name was Frank Cuts-the-Rope. My grandma's name was Matilda White Plume Cuts-the-Rope. On my dad's side, it was Robert Werk Sr. and Isabel Gardapi Werk. My great-grandparents, I can't even think of their names. Their last one was White Plume, and the other one was I can't remember Grandpa's name, but it was Cuts-the-Rope. I don't know. They just talked Indian, so I didn't know. And my grandma was a Gardapi, Grandma Isabel. So their last names, they were Gardapis. And my mom was born at home in the log cabin down at the Cuts-the-Rope place. My dad was born in Blue Heaven, out there past, you know where Blue Heaven is, out by Timber Ridge there? That's where they lived. That's why they call it Blue Heaven. That's where my dad grew up. He went to school till the 8th grade, then he started working. And then after my mom graduated from high school, my dad married her, and they were married for 53 years before she passed away. For elementary and junior high, I went to St. Paul's Mission. For high school, I went to St. Paul's Mission for 1 year, Blondrew Indian School for 1 year, and 2 years I went to Harlem High School, and I graduated from Harlem High School. It was run like a little army camp, as long as I could remember. The nuns were very strict and very mean, when I remember, but they always had a lot of activities. And I remember that, they were nice to the 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, but after you got up farther, then you were getting in trouble a lot. And then they didn't care how they corrected you. It was like with a ruler, or with a paddle, or with a rubber hose. And any other times they'd lock you in your locker, because they had wooden lockers. Everybody had a locker when you went to school. And if you were acting up and you were disrupting the class, then they'd lock you in your locker. And you stayed in there until you were ready to behave. And as we got older in junior high, then they expected you to learn. They taught you, they forced you to learn. You had to learn. And that's where you learned how to write, read, add, subtract, everything. You had to. Like with us, we had to not have all, like they didn't have they'd have like grades like, how did they do that? Like, if you did good, you'd have an E for excellent, and then all the way down to F for failing. So that's how they rated you. When you got to high school, they had just like certain classrooms. There was like, they kind of combined you all, and then they had every class that you could even think about. Spanish, English, speech, drama. You even had to get up on the stage, and you'd have to put on plays for your parents. And that's something that I really learned. That really helped me, because it taught me how, you look out in the crowd, they're just people. and they made sure that you weren't backward. There were some that are, some really crazy ones, like Iitaanɔɔn'i, Matthew Allen, he's rest their souls, Pancho Holly, Jim Fox, Smiley Gardapi. Those are always the ones that were getting in trouble, and they didn't care. Constantly. And then after that year, that was my 9th grade. Then 10th grade, I went to Blandrew. Then I switched to Harlem when I was a junior. And at that time, we rode the bus every day. The bus would pick us up in the morning, and then we'd go to Lodgepole first, and then it would pick us up and it'd take us to Harlem, which was really a shocker for me, culture-wise, because when I went to school there was probably 75% or 78% non-Indians. And today it's like 98% Indian, 2% white, and it was really hard. It was kind of like a culture shock, for me it was. And we rode the bus back and forth every day. And then we'd have to, coming home, we'd have to ride the bus to Lodgepole and then drop everybody off and then come back and go to Hays. Then they drop us off. So it was a long day. We had probably 12-hour days. That's what we had every day. And with my parents, you never missed a day of school unless you were 3 steps from death. When I went to school at the mission, all of us had perfect attendance, just about 100%. You didn't dare get a bad grade. You didn't dare get in trouble at school, because if you got trouble at school, which I usually did, then you got it from them, and when you got home, you got it from your folks. So it was you were going to get fixed twice a day. I never learned. I just figured I was stubborn. I'm going to keep learning, but I'm going to also be myself, which was kind of weird. And like when we were there in school, you weren't allowed to wear pants at all. The girls, I don't care if it was 20 below, you still had to wear a dress to school. And then you had to stand on the road and wait for the bus. And you have tights, or your little legs would be just red from the cold, But that's how it was. And they never changed it until high school, that they'd let you wear a dress. One time, when I was in high school up there, at I think the 10th grade, we were all in church, because we had to go to church every Friday. It was whether it was planned or not, you had to go. But there was this, what do you call him? His name was Brother Ron. And he was like a creepy person. I mean, scary. He'd run all the time. He had those big, where they, like a big old cloak. That's what the priests wore then, all the way down to their legs and stuff. And he came into the church one day, and he was just upset. He was just livid. He said we were all evil, because we were showing our bodies by having dresses on, and he just made a big old scene at church. And then he just ran out like that, and the nuns were just kind of, and they just kind of let it go, But he was creepy. He stayed in this one shed, probably where those trailers are now in back of the rec center. Yeah, he lived there. And the priests back then, they all wore, like I said, those great big old cloaks. And then you think about it now, and they'd always have these boys or girls. Like a special one they'd come and take them and say they were going to pray. And now come to find out many years later, they were molesting them. That's what they were doing. They were, what do you call that when you prime them, or, just earn their trust? Yeah, that's what they were doing. And that's why you had so many of these people that have filed claims against the Catholic Church for the molestation. And the nuns should have been charged too, because I know by now most of them are burning in hell. They'd have to. What they did to the Indian people here. I mean, Like, my mom went to the mission school. All her sisters and brothers did. My grandma did. And she'd tell how when they were there, Grandma Cuddy, she'd tell them that when they'd get in trouble, they'd have to kneel on beads, the big rosary beads, for hours. Until, you know, and you think about all that. You think about that. And then what they did was they molded, like Mom's generation, my mother, into believing that our heritage was wrong, you know, and that they didn't believe that what the Indians taught us, that was the way. To me, that was the most sacredest way. That's one thing they'd never take away from me, because I believed in my culture. And like when we got older and my mom and dad, you know, we all grew up, then we carried on. Some of us carried on, you know, like I used to roll. Here's who I used to roll with. Grandma Cuddy, Katie Pete, and Grandma Lambo, Celia Lambo. That's who I'd roll with. I'd drive them all over, you know. And then they'd sit there and they'd tell me stories of the long ago. My grandma pulled out all her stuff where she had a knife that was like, you know, with lines on. That's how many buffaloes she skinned, you know, and she shared all that with us, you know, and they'd tell us stories of long ago. She'd always tell me about her one son that went to war. His name was Catcher, and he never came back, you know, and they knew another tribe murdered him. So those are the kind of things that happened way back then. There's a lot of stuff, and I always try to keep it, so I try to write it down so that way I could share it with my grandson, my grandkids, you know, like, which I have is only Marquez. So he likes to hear all that kind of stuff. Grandma, how was it, you know? And then, like Estelle, she went to school up here in the Mission, you know, from kindergarten up to, I believe it was the 8th grade or 6th grade. And the nuns were still pretty goddamn much the same. Sister Giswalda and them, and then Sister Chris came along and the rest of them. But they were like that too. They were really believed, and I think that they got off on beating the kids and making it like that. Yeah, they enjoyed it, you know? But I wasn't allowing that to happen to my daughter. No way. I told them that era's gone. The black robes are gone as far as I'm concerned. You know, like I say today, they're gone. And that's our place. They only borrowed it because they came here, and that's where they colonized us, I want to say. They took away what we learned. That's why you kids don't have a lot, because they took that away. And you're going to have to listen to the elders. You're going to have to research in order to learn about how it was back then. And like, it's hard. You know, our language is really hard. The Assiniboine language is easier than the Gros-Ventre language, you know. And like, we went through a lot with, I don't know why it is like it is on the reservation here. Like, you're either, like they always consider me, they always call me a breed, because my dad was Métis. Your grandpa was too. Yeah, they're Métis, they're Métis. And I said, you goddamn right, some of them Métis. I said, there's nothing in this world would ever make me say that I'm ashamed of my dad. You know, because on your side, Billy, you had Grandma Little Marie, you had Lola, you had Edith, you had Sonny, and you had Woody, and you had Mona. Let's see. Yeah, and then Toby died. He was their youngest. He died. And my grandma, Isabel, was really proud to be Métis. And they're the first ones, way back, that set up that celebration over in Lewistown many years ago. Mm-hmm. And they had the scarves and the dresses, like they're kind of similar to what our the way the old ladies dressed when I was growing up. It's similar, but they all had different ways, and she talked her Métis language, you know, but she was really proud of it. Whether she was just a quarter or whatever, she was proud of it. And I wish she would have lived to see the day when they finally did become federally recognized and they all got their little settlements. And there's some people that should never have been entitled to it. Like these enrolled Grovons or these little enrolled Assiniboines that applied for that Métis money and got it. She did, and her kids, you know, and here they're Assiniboine. I didn't like that. There was a lot of them. They weren't entitled to it. And now you look at the Métis culture over there in Lewistown, when they handed out that ARPA money, you know, when everybody got it, with all those millions, look what they did with theirs. They built a center for their people over in Lewistown. Or in Great Falls, yeah, that's where it's at. They have a wellness center. They have all these programs they invested that money into for their people. What did we do with ours? That was just a section of it. They only gave out what? What did we get? $2,000? $1,200? Yeah, now figure. That didn't add up. We only have like 5,000 enrolled members. If a little more maybe by now. Because like now, you have to consider this, that in the CFR, and when it comes to federal monies, you have to be 1/4 of a federally recognized tribe. You cannot be an eighth of this and an eighth of that to be entitled to anything. And it says it in the CFR. The only way you can use that is to get medical help. So when these guys decided they were going to make it's okay for ACE to get enrolled, well, they kind of screwed up. They screwed us over. Yeah. Because you cannot use federal money, even TANF or GA, because you have to be 1/4 of a federally recognized tribe. But they spend it. They include that. And one of these days, they're going to cut us off, and we really are going to be up shit creek. You know, they don't think that. And I just believe that's wrong, you know. But, like, I'm proud of my heritage. I don't care. I'm an Indian. You know, I'm an Indian, and I'm a human being. I do my praying. I do my, you know, all that kind of stuff, my dancing, in joining ceremonies, but I will not sweat. I was taught by my grandmas that women don't sweat. If they seen how they do sun dances now, they'd roll over in their graves. Like my grandma, when they start having them up here, or when they had them over there in the open, she said, women aren't allowed to be there. You're not even supposed to be there. She said, you go way away if you're going to go. Your job is to cook for those men in there. That's all you do. You do not go to the circle. Now, see how they keep adding, these younger people keep adding on ways. Like a woman is not allowed to dance, not allowed to pierce, not allowed to drag skulls. Okay, but these new people, these new, whatever they want to call themselves, healers or spiritual, you cannot change things. So I still, to this day, I do not go to a Sundance. If I am going to go, I'm going to go as far as have somebody meet me there and here's some water or here's some food. And that's it. Because I see all these women and they're not supposed to be in there. And I was always taught, now those are very respectable. Matilda, Celia Lambeau, you know, and Katie Pete. Those are one of the most respectful people around. And if they told you something, you either listen. Like today, the other day, Jeff said, oh, you could come and sweat. I said, no, Jeff, I can't. And he said, well, there's women there. I said, I know, but it's wrong. I said, I was taught by my grandma. I said, and she's been gone for a lot of years. I said, and I was just a little girl when she told me. women don't sweat. She said, and don't you dare ever. I said, how would you like to get bawled out by an 80-year-old woman shaking your finger at you? You know, you never forget that. It stays there. And like, none of my family, none of those, my sisters, they will not go in that circle. They will not go into the circle. I will not go into a lodge. No. And I will not sweat. Because women have their monthly. That's their way of releasing everything. A man has to suffer. That's what those lodges were made for. Have you ever watched those old history movies from way back? Did you ever see any women inside those? Mm-hmm. You'll always see them way back. They're either singing or cooking, which they're allowed to. But now it's like, I believe, with all this change in our culture, nobody gives you the authority to change it. Was it passed down to you? Do you have proof it was passed down to you? No. And I believe that's why we have such a messed up reservation. You got too many people trying to be chiefs and telling them this is the way it is. Because there were so many of us, we ate a lot of spuds. We had probably one of the biggest gardens in Hays. It was probably the size of this house. Our garden. Okay. We had a garden. We always ate deer meat or, wild game because my dad worked most of the time. And so we had to live on game, which is probably why we were always so healthy, And then prairie chickens, sage hens, fish, all that type of stuff. And then when we did have special occasion, we'd have turkey or we'd make bullets and fry bread and all that type of stuff. And we'd always have to make dry meat. And our house was, my mom had rows and rows of, wire running across the house, And then we'd have to make dry meat. We didn't make the kind where they smoke. We had to sit there and slice the meat. And I can really slice dry meat to this day. And then we'd hang it up and have to, knew exactly when to turn it and all that kind of stuff. And then my mom would make grub door, you call it, with choke cherries and stuff with the dry meat. And she'd grind it up. And that was like a treat. Put sugar in there. And people don't do that anymore. I'll do it once in a while. Then we always had tripe. Did you guys ever eat tripe? Okay, well, I made some. I cooked some. And I froze it. So when you guys all want to come down and get together, then we'll sit around and eat tripe. Because I do have tripe. I love tripe. Cook it outside for hours. And then bring it in and then warm it up. So my house don't stink. Yeah, and then that's what we had. And then as the other ones, my younger brothers and sisters were growing up then. We were out of high school then. And then they start, Dad didn't have so many to take care of. So, because Reedy, she got married when she was 16. She married Dale. And because she was pregnant. And that's when she had Adam, when she was 16. And they were married for 43 years before she died. That's something you don't ever see, hardly. A couple that young starting out and having kids and staying married that long. And she died of cancer. And then my sister Joni got married 6 months later to Donnie Racine from Browning, and then they had little Don. So it was kind of like it was weird. They had to tell my dad that they got them pregnant. And that was the scariest thing they ever did, because they were looking at a beating from my dad. And my dad said, well, what are you going to trade me for my daughters? Where's your horses? Where's all that, So they did. They went and got what they could. And then he allowed them to get married, which I thought was pretty cool, And then my brother, he went away and did his thing, and then he come back, and then he married Gilbert's mom. Then they divorced later on, and then he married this woman from Flathead, and he worked over there for like 15 years, and then he got sick and came back. And then he stayed with me until he died. And he's been gone about 3 years now. He stayed with me for about 5 years, you know. And I always remember one story about him. It was so crazy. Marquez was I think he was in 3rd or 4th grade. And Frosty told Sister Helen, because she was mean. Oh, God, she was mean, evil. Anyway, he told her, if you ever lay a hand on my grandson, I'm coming up there, and we're going to fight. If he tells me that, you know, you did something, or he calls me and he's crying. So Marquez called and he was crying, you know, and he said, what? You know, and, Sister being mean to me, and oh my God. He hangs up the phone, and then he calls Sister Helen. You effing B.I. He said, I told you never, ever lay hands on my grandson. He said, I'm coming up there right now, and I'm going to knock the F out of you. You know, he was mad, and he was crippled. He was struggling to put his braces on his legs. And then my son-in-law, Chris, you know, come on, hurry up, you know, and he putting his things on his legs, and then he was driving him up there, and Frosty called it before. He said, I'm on my way, and I'm going to knock the F out of you. You know, so, boy, they were going, and here Chris told him, he said, I'll go with you, Frosty, I'll take you up there, but I'm fighting no none, you know. He gets up there, and just before he opens the door, custodian, he locked it. They locked it, and they wouldn't let him in. I said, he kept pounding on that window with that cane, and she wouldn't. Boy, he stood there. He called her every name in the book, and boy, she never, ever after that did anything to Marquez, because he was going to fight her, fist fight her. You know, I said, God, wouldn't that have been crazy if Sister would have whipped you? You didn't have your balance. So, yeah, that's kind of like, that was good, you know? Yeah, with my grandmas, they'd get together, and you knew they were talking about you, you know, because they'd be laughing, you know, like this, you know. And Grandma Lambo was a big woman. She was like this, you know. She'd just sit there and her belly bounce up and down, you know. And then they were teaching me language, and then I didn't roll my tongue right, so they'd make fun of me. I told them, you know what, you're not supposed to laugh at me, you're teaching me, you know. I said, I'm not doing it no more. I said, I'm not talking anymore. You know, but they do that to me because I was silly, you know. But my sister Joni, so she could speak fluent Joni, you know. And my mom, she couldn't. She knew some words because they would beat them if they talked their language at the mission. So my mom didn't know too many words. But my Aunt Hazel and my Aunt Celia, they talked fluent. And but Auntie Ida and Auntie Esther, they didn't, you know. And like I said, Joni talks fluent, Little Dawn talks fluent, Adam talks, you know. Yeah, they're fluent. Little Dawn's fluent, and so is Joni. You ever want to know some good stories in Indian? She's the one. She knows. She knows about the roots. She knows about all the different you know, like my grandma was one of those medicinal healers. You know, every root had a reason. And then she passed that on to Joni. Anything from an earache to a toothache to a stomach ache to a rash, anything. Cancer, all this stuff, Joni knows. So she's very into her, that's why we call her Niwa. She's very into her culture, her Indian ways, you know. She's simple too, though, like the rest of us. But it's all good, though. It's all good. We lived, growing up, there was a house right in front of the John Capture Center there. There was a house there, first one, we lived in it, then another one. was next to us was like the Flurries, and then next to them was Davy Belgart's mother, Rosie, and then next to them was Ida and Bruce, and then next to them was they called him Punch. I don't know what Punch's last name was, but anyway, all those houses are gone, but they were like just 2 bedrooms, like 2-room bedrooms, a kitchen, and a living room. And that's how there was Mom, Dad, Frosty, Joni, me, Tammy, and Ricky. There was 7 of us in that 2-bedroom place. And my dad, we waited and waited for house and house until, I don't know how many years. They finally got one, but we were all grown up and married and whatever. Just Bud and Jim and Butchie and Maggie and Toby were still there. And they finally got it out there on the flats. But we grew up in that house my dad built because I got tired of, you know, where Ricky used to live. Mm-hmm. That one in the brush, that's where we grew up. And it was fun. It was fun, but it was spooky when our folks was there. I believe there was something happened there, like smallpox, or where people died, you know, or died a violent death at one time, because it was always creepy at night. You know, when my folks weren't there, the doors would open, you know, and here I was. I had to be the one that would go outside and have to look to see if anybody was because they'd cry, you know, they were chickens, so I'd go out and have to walk around the house and make sure, but it was just kind of creepy, and it still is. It's like it comes from up here by the school, goes down, like through where Hollies lived this way, and it goes all the way down, like to where we used to live, through Delina's and Gert and all of them. It's like a bad vibe or something. And it must go all the way across the reservation. Because at one time, remember, they had the smallpox, and that ran all the way up to where the school sits now, through there and through here downtown. And that's why they call that the pines up there, you know, and they had that. That's where some of them are buried. And people used to walk up there, and I used to walk up there when I was a little girl with my Grandma Werk. And we'd go up there, and then we'd leave tobacco or something, because she'd say, just look around, you know, and you'd dig around, you'd see beads and stuff like that. You knew there was somebody there, but we'd never take anything. And I don't know, some people did. And that's why there's so much up there. There's so much, because they call it the pines, you know, up there, and it's right behind all them houses. And you got to walk up there. It's by those sand things. Mm-hmm. And that's sacred. They should have, you know, fenced it off or something. Because there was people that were buried there. When they built those homes over there, when they were digging them up, they were digging up bones. When they built those houses up in Pine Grove. And they never did anything about it. They never had no ceremonies or nothing. They just built through there, just blade through there, put the houses down, cover them back up. That's why I say every one of those houses are haunted. They are, every one of them. And I could tell you that because I used to live where she lived. And there used to be an old lady that would sit in a corner in a rocking chair. Just sit there. Oh, I just go to sleep, heck. Figured she was watching over me, you know. But every place had, every house up there, you could ask them. Every one of them, something goes through there. Where, what's his name? Live? That was the worst one. Because I lived there one time with Tammy. We didn't last very long. It was terrible. But I would be mad if somebody dug me up and then covered me back up and spread my bones all over. They should have some kind of ceremony. Where was all our spiritual people then? You know, busy sleeping or something, or drunk. The way I look at it, you know, some of them were. That's why those pipes were left where they were. And I still don't believe in our pipe being over in Lodgepole. Mm-mm. Why is it over in Lodgepole? Who gave Joe Ironman the right to take our pipe out of that old house up there that sat there by Esther's, Donny's, you know, Fremmy's. All those years when we were growing up, nobody would go near it. No kids would just go through there, destroy it, or nothing. Nobody, because they all knew the pipe was in there. And I used to go with Grandma Cuddy, Jeanette Warrior, Grandma Lambo, and Mabel Bradley. They'd go up there, and then they have to change the cloth and feed it and stuff like that. I walked in there one time, never again, because it was, you could see it was so powerful, it kind of like glowed, you know, and they treated it like a baby. You know, they had to hold it, and then they'd have to unwrap it, and then put new cloth on it, and then feed it and everything, and then lay it back down. But everybody never, ever went in there. Nobody ever busted the door down. Like now it's just kind of like, you know, it's just kind of like dying on its own, because you know how they fall in, the old houses. But still, to the day, nobody will go over there. And I don't know who gave him the right to move the pipe. You know? That's kind of strange. I mean, it needs to be back over here. And when you carry the pipe, you have to be with that pipe. Somebody in your family has to be with that pipe all the time. I'm always asking him, who's watching the pipe? You can't leave it alone. So, well, what do you expect, you know? That's an honor to have to, you know, but with it comes a lot of responsibility. And I know that. It's something else. But we lived in that. Then from there we moved down to, my dad built that house down there. My dad with Grandpa Bob and Sonny Werk. They did it all. My dad did the plumbing, the electrics, everything. And when we moved in, it was just 2 big rooms. And we looked like a god-darn dorm on that one side, because there must have been about 8 beds, you know, because there were so many of us. And then on the other side was the living room and the kitchen. And that's how we moved in. But it was a lot of fun, a lot of good times. We grew up, you know, we were crazy. We'd go take off and go get drunk or something, and knew that when I'd get drunk, because I knew I'd get a beating, and it wouldn't hurt so bad. You know, you got to wise up, you know. My sisters and them would be crying before they even got hit, you know, and Dad wouldn't even bother. Not me. I had to get smart, you know, and then get it worse. Hit me again. Is that all you got? I always remember that story. I told my dad that. Is that all you got? Call yourself a man, you know? Boom. Right between the eyes, you know? He told my mom, get in here. He said, Evie, I think she's nuts, you know? And I said, I am, you know? Half-wit, you know? Didn't care. And then I'd have to go, we'd have to get up, and, you know, he'd be hungover. You guys know how it is, young. And then you just now learning how to drink, or we'd sneak away, because this Amy Belgard over here, when those houses were there, she used to run moonshine. She'd make moonshine. And then Davy and I, Davy Belgard, we were talking about that. He said, remember when, you know, my grandma made moonshine, and we'd go steal a big bottle? I mean, we're talking about those moonshine bottles with the handles on them. And a whole bunch of us. And then we'd all be sitting around. It didn't even take us half a bottle like that. We're talking about a jug about this big. And they're like this with the little handle on it, you know. How you see those hillbillies, you know, you have to tip it up and drink it like that. That's how we did. But, oh my God, you were sick the next day, or else you had diarrhea. You were running from the toilet. And that's a lot of things that they had around here. Like through here, there used to be a show hall right over there where that white trailer is. You know, there used to be a show hall there. Right here, there used to be like a big old Hays sign. And then they had another building here. And then over here, there was houses. Where the tenplex is, there were houses. And then right next to where yeah, by the tenplexes, they had, like, there was like those houses that Jim Flansburgh lives in. I'll use that one as an example. They had 3 of those there. Then across the road, they had Monica and them lived in a little house. And then over here, there was George Rock, where there used to be like a little walkway that way. And then they had the store. They had that store, you know, the one that Brenda used to own long time ago. Red Zitz was the guy that built the store. And then they had the store with the post office together. Okay, then you had, it wasn't where the post office is now. There they had 1, 2, 3 other houses. Okay, there. And then across from the road where that trailer and stuff sits, where Amy lives, there was another big store. It was a hardware store and a grocery store. And it was run by some guy in Harlem, but it was one of those old kind of stores where you could go in and get a pair of pants and all that, tools and food and everything there.
Like
and then everybody just kind of sat around outside. It had a great big old front porch, and everybody'd sit there and watch everybody else go by. Then after down the store where this guy lives, up here, whoever this main guy is, there used to be Luke Shortman and Lillian Shortman. And about 20 dogs she had. And that was there. And then you go, like where the post office is now, well, there was houses there. But you go up that road, and there used to be a bridge across there. You know, and the water used to really come through. But after that bridge, then there was where Chug Morin's dad and mother lived there. And then on this side, there used to be, on the other side, there was Bates Stoney, and I can't remember, there was a couple other houses there, where all those houses sit now. And then across the road, there was like another little village. But they had these red houses. And that was where Itty and Bushy and them and White Cows lived then. And then up by the hill, there was more houses. And then it was like they had all these places. And I don't know what people did, why they let everything go. Because they had so much here, even to have a movie theater. And that other place I was talking about, that building was like a rec center, a rec hall, where you go in, you could get pop and stuff, you could play pool, you could do things like that. See how simple it was. And like across where the green building is, there was a house there, and then there was another house right by the corner there, where the green building sits. And I remember this family that lived there, and it caught on fire. And I think there was like 2 kids in there that burnt up, and this teacher was trying to save them, you know, burnt his hair off and everything. And then right next to them, there was an old log cabin. I can't remember who lived in it. I don't know if it was, I'll have to think about that one. There was an old log cabin, old built up kind, long time ago. You could see the kind with the mud and stuff on top of the house. Mm-hmm. You know, that's how it was. And then next to it was Herbie Bradley, where that Bradley's place is, and he had his shop. He had like a tire shop, like a mechanic shop, and then Martin's store wasn't even there then. And back where Martin's store is, there used to be this old fella they called, what the hell, Lyle Cochran's grandparents. Behind there, there was old houses there. And they were really traditional old people that lived in these houses. And then Matty Turntoes lived in that red house. Remember Ketcher burnt it down because they said it was a meth house. Mm. It wasn't a meth house. It was a place for those guys that, you know, like were homeless. And and then he had no business burning it down. But there's all kinds of things that I could just walk you through here and tell you who used to live here, there, you know, and what used to sit there back. Even up past where, what's her name used to live there? Old Lady McConnell, they called her, where Buster Moore lives, you know. She had a beautiful place, and there was houses back there. And then they had the big old frog pond, they called it back there. Now where they have the park. And it used to be just beautiful. And I used to have the biggest crabapple trees around. And it just all kinds of different things. I lived, okay. After I graduated from high school, then I went to college for a year, then I left. And I decided I was only 17. I was 16 when I graduated. I turned 17 that fall. So I worked around here for a while, then I thought, nah, I always want to see everything. So I got on a bus and I went to California, and I stayed down there with Buzz and Ann Cochran in Fort Bidwell, California. I'm on a little tiny reservation. And I worked down there. I lived in Portland, Oregon. Estelle was born in Portland, Oregon. I worked for the Portland Area Indian Health Board there. And then I lived in Seattle. I worked up there in Seattle, what was it? It was called the Seattle Indian Center. And I worked up there for a few years. And then I moved to the Colville tribe. What is that called? Nesfield, Washington. I worked over there for a few years. Then I came back. Then I went back to college. And then I decided I wanted to work as a public defender. So then I started training in that field. And then when I did start working there, then they sent me to training down in New Mexico for like 6 months. And then I also had training over in South Dakota. And so I did that for a long time, and then I decided I was going to go live over in Pueblo, over there in Montana. So I worked as a federal programs officer for Salish Kootenai tribe. So I handled all their money, is what I basically did. All the scholarships, fundraising, everything I did for Salish Kootenai tribe. And then, oh God. I guess one of my other bucket lists was I wanted to go as many places as I possibly could before I settled down and had a kid. So I did. I went from one end of the United States to the other. I've been to Washington, D.C. I worked over there for a little while. I went to Chicago. I went to, it was kind of like I wanted to see everything, you know? And I went to Nevada. One of my bucket list was to see George Jones. And so one of my friends bought me tickets to George Jones, and it was like, one of these big tables, you know, fancy tables and drinks, whatever. And the stage was from about where I'm sitting to there. And I got to, that was another one of my bucket lists. My other bucket list that I'm going to do next year is I'm going to Green Bay, Wisconsin to watch the Green Bay Packers play. And that's my next bucket list. Before Marquez got in trouble, on January 7th, him and I were going to San Francisco for the 49ers game. He missed out. So we had tickets, everything. And so he'll do it this year. I will give him that opportunity again. It was really different. No matter place where I went, it was like out at the coast, when I worked out there, everything they did was like with, they were really into fish, like salmon, you know, and they're drying their salmon like we did dry meat. You know, they'd have it on their big old, they'd have it all spread out. They'd have it on these big old spears or poles, you know, and they dry it. Then what they did, what I thought was really awesome, was watching them make the totem poles. Those were really into that over there. Yeah, that was awesome. And that was part of the Nisqually tribe. Yeah. And so no matter where I went, I always went and found out something, you know, new. That was my goal. I wanted to say I wanted to travel and see everything before I had kids. Because by the time I had mine, my friends from back here already had about 3 or 4 kids. And then I didn't have Estelle till I was 28. So I was too busy doing what I wanted to do. And I liked it in San Francisco. I walked across the Golden Gate Bridge. I could see that. The only thing I didn't do is, I used to hate those ferries. I was going to take the ferry out to Alcatraz, but I got scared. So I just looked at it from the bridge, you could see it, And when I go over to the other tribe up there in Seattle, then you would have to take the ferry. Oh, God. And to me, that was kind of traumatizing, but I did it because I wanted to see everything. And I did. I've seen everything. I even sang when I went to college in Great Falls. I was part of the choir, and we sang at the World's Fair in Spokane, Washington. So there's all kinds of things that I've done that I could talk about, but I never did lose sight of where I came from. I was never ashamed of where I came from, and I still am not today. Like I said, I could tell you stories. I could sit here all night and tell you stories. I tried every kind of food they had too. To me, that really pisses me off. Because, like I said, during that 100-year time, that was included in it. And John Captor was alive when he kept telling them, you have so much time. You have so much time before it runs out. And you're going to lose it. We're going to lose our mountains. We're going to lose that over there. And guess what? We lost it. So it was basically, it really bothers me. And it bothers me how they tore the mountain down. My dad, because he was a hard worker, he wasn't educated, he was self-taught, everything he did. He was very stern, and what he told you to do, he expected you to do it, whether you wanted to or not. Like if you didn't want to ride a horse, you were going to ride it anyway, If you didn't want to go and haul water, you were going to haul it anyway. Because we used to have to haul our water from the spring, man. We were buff then, and it wasn't close either. That was what we used for drinking water. And we all had chores, and they were put on the freezer, and everybody had, when you were big enough to get it up to the sink, if you weren't tall enough, then he made a stool for us to stand on. So you could do dishes. Everybody had to do something. We always had to, no matter what. And all my life, I watched my dad work hard. He had all those kids. He had us all, and we never went without. I don't care. He took us to town. Everybody gets brand new clothes. Now you think about school. We were lucky to get one new outfit because there were so many of us. He built our own home and then he wasn't, like I said, he was Métis and he was proud of it, but he never condemned, our mom or her people for being Indian or anything, and we're always saying something about white man or something, and then we'd forget our dad was mostly all white, but he didn't care, he was kind of Indian himself, Him and Moses Nespers, oh my God, those two were something. But he worked hard all his life. And I could honestly say that when they sold out to Toby, and then when they were both in the ground, they did not owe the tribe one lick of money. And I don't know how many people could say that. Probably none, other than my folks. They paid off all their loans, they did everything. Every year they didn't owe the tribe. They believed in paying just the interest. And like, look at these people that down there. They'll never see daylight, ever. You know, and like my dad, like I said, he was my biggest inspiration because he worked so hard and he expected his kids to get educated. He believed in college or some kind of training, you're going to learn something. You know, you're not going to depend on, you know, the government or whatever. Because he never did. You know? Maybe food stamps in it, Maggie.
Yeah,
You'd have to qualify for food stamps with 10 kids, you know? What do you expect, you know? That was something when we'd go shopping. He used to have a warehouse in Havre. And we bought things by the cases, you know? So there was like cases of all our food, you know? And you stack it all up and everything. And then when I used to get rations, honest to God, I used to hate unloading rations. You know, because they had big 10 pounds of flour then, but then they put them like 5 or 6 in a bag, and here you are struggling to get them in the house, you know? And like I said, and then we were always had spuds, picking spuds. That's why I hate picking spuds to this day.
Take us to big spuds.
Oh my God. We had the biggest garden around. Oh, and then, so he was, everything he did, everything we had down there, Dad built with his own 2 hands. You know, and it was awesome. You know, your grandpa helped, you know, Uncle Sonny helped, you know, and Uncle Happy, and, you know, but they took a little piece of place there. They bought 5 acres from Grandma Cuddy and Arcelia, whatever, and that's where he built our little home. And it's still standing today. So that was my biggest inspiration. And I love my mom too, you know. She was probably the best window rancher around. That's what my dad would call her. Because she was. She knew everybody's cows. She knew what cat belonged to who. You weren't pulling no wool over her eyes. Nobody, you know. Nobody's going to pull a wool over her. She was 4'11" Spitfire. That's what she was. And she was the toughest woman on 2 legs in her eyes. Yeah. But she was, you know, I miss them dearly. God, I do. You look back and the way that we grew up, we used to think it was so bad. And I wished I would have instilled that into my kid. And that's the way a lot of people should have raised their kids back then. And like if you went to visit somebody or you got in trouble at somebody else's house, like with my partners I used to hang out with, and if they got fixed, then you got fixed. Same way if they came home with us and we were half lit, you got fixed and so did they. You know, and you didn't dare go home and tell them, oh, I got beat up by, you know, because, you know, then you'd get beat up again, you know. So it was kind of like a close-knit community where everybody took care of everybody. Not all this jealousy and hatred that's going on.
Then they'd go visit people. Mm-hmm. Their whole family would visit.
Yeah, load us up, we'd go visit. You know, like all your uncles and aunts. Come and bring them all. Nobody
We'd always go to, I remember always going to Kirkwood's. Mm-hmm. And they'd have a lot of food.
It was like Thanksgiving.
Yes, I mean, you know, they'd invite us up.
But even your grandma and grandpa, my mom and dad used to go up there.
All play cards.
And it was just a natural thing, and your kids could go outside and play, and you don't have to worry about them getting run over or somebody doing something to them.
Probably wasn't the drugs either, or the alcohol that it was there. Or, you know.
And then you could leave your house open, you know. Didn't have to worry about people coming in and stealing from you. Now you have to have double locks and security cameras. But they need to get rid of the drugs. Bad. And the alcohol. Mm-hmm. You know, because like I said, I'd like to, like Wyland said, I'd like to count how many people died of this alcohol in the past. Just say in the past 5 years. And they're still doing it. Oh, that's our money maker. Me, I was a worker. No matter where I went, I had a job. That I could say. I worked all the time. I would like to tell them to please, go and find an older person and talk to them and ask them how it used to be. Ask them what you need to do as a younger person, your ages. What can we do to save our people? Because we just kind of went from being up here to down here. And now we're stuck. And you need to, what I'd like to tell you people is you have to come together as one. You're not Grovon, you're not Assiniboine, you're not Matisse, you're not white, you're not a breed. This is our land. And if you don't come together, we're going to lose it. We are. Because our council is a prime example of that. They don't do strategic planning. They don't go any farther than the end of their nose. You got to think down the road. There's so many things that can be done, but you can't do it alone. And there's a lot of young people out there that will back you, but you got to want to put that effort into it. And there's people out there that would help. I would gladly advise you on anything that I know and how to do it. I can write grants. I can do all that. I went to school for that, too. So, and there's money galore out there. But they sit down there and they won't go after those grants. And that's sad. And they say, oh, the kids, or oh, the elders, or we got to worry about the adults. Hey, they got to worry about themselves, too. They got to make an effort. You can't sit there because you're an elder and say, this, I need that because I'm an elder. Hell no. I have to fight for damn near 6 months just to get my house partway done when there's so many things wrong with it. But that's okay. I got a roof over my head, and a place to stay. And I'm thankful for that. But I don't appreciate people coming saying and getting smart to me and saying, well, we did the best we could. No, you did not do the best you could. If you did the best you could, it wouldn't look like that. You can go through some of these rooms and you'd see. Go outside, you see my deck barely hanging on there. Yeah. But that's what I would advise you guys. You have to come together. And you got to be strong enough to go door to door to door. And if you don't know them, then go up to them and introduce yourself. There's people down there. But you can't do it alone. You got to do it with everybody. That's my advice to you. Don't become a clan, Mike. Oh, I live out here in Hays, so I'm a Hazer, or I'm an agency, or I'm that. No, that shit's gone. Pretty soon we ain't gonna have a reservation. Then what are we gonna do? You got to be smart enough to stop what's going on. That's what I say. And they're worried about the water rights. They've been worried about the water rights. If they'd have listened to John Capter and John Allen and all them old fellas 30 years ago, we'd already had our water rights. We'd already had everything done. You can't even get a grant to build new houses. Why not? There's money, millions of dollars in HUD. Nobody's writing for it. They sit down there and do formula grants. Oh, yay, we got this much. All you do with formula grant is just put in numbers. So there's money out there. Like I said, I'd like to see the 21st Century program come back, close up, gear up, all that. That used to be after school. So you guys got to learn. You got to listen to the news. You got to listen to the politicians, because even them are getting crooked, And you got to stop it. But you can't stop it as one. You got to stop it as a group. But that's what my advice to you guys is. It's all up to you. No matter what I could tell you, you could either take it and run with it, or you could say, oh, the hell, she don't know what she's talking about. It's up to you. How bad do you want it? Do you want a reservation? Do you want a homeland? So you guys are the upcoming generation. And you got to be smart, wise. You got to learn everything you can. You can't just sit down at round table and say, oh yeah, I'm going to do this, or, you know, back when. Hey, those back when is over with. Yeah, you got to look for the future. And there's so much possibilities here. A lot of possibilities. You got to be smart enough to go after it. And I'll be around, like I said. I'll help you any way you can. And like, go to other reservations and look. See what they're doing. That's where you get your money. So you can find out what they're doing. They're really active over at Flathead, you know. And that's that Two Eagle River School, you know. That's kind of like a school for, you know, like kids that can't make it anywhere else. But hell, they even played in divisionals.